I know for me, one of the things that changed my thinking about time very much was the electronic music.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the pilot episode of the GoodSlashBad show / podcast. My name is Joe Ahrens. I'm the person behind the GoodSlashBad brand or name or whatever you want to call it. I make short videos, stupid stuff, just, trying to entertain myself and all you crazy people out there. So I would now like to introduce my co-host / first guest, my very good friend, man on a mission, James McIver.
Hi there, all you beautiful people.
You're making a lot of assumptions there, Jim.
You're definitely right there.
All right, so before we get into talking about the specific things we're going to be talking about today, I just want to go over the general outline of what this show is going to be in the future. The basic idea is, since I am a film student, filmmaker, amateur filmmaker, interested in that kind of thing, I wanted to do a show where we talk about movies, movie-related things, specifically one movie at a time, do a little bit of a deep dive, and but I also wanted to have just kind of fun, general variety show where we shoot the shit a little bit, have fun, talk about some random topics, what's going on in the world at the moment, maybe, hopefully not, because a lot of horrible things are happening right now. Terrible things. But so the first half of the show will usually be, after a little bit of an introduction, we talk about a movie, which is going to be either picked by me or by my guest. And then the second half will be a bit of an open discussion on a topic, which will be picked by the opposite person of whoever picked the movie. So if I pick the movie, the guest will pick the topic, and vice versa. Since this is like I said, the pilot episode, first episode, we're going to do it's going to be a bit loose. We do have a movie to talk about, but the topic I wanted to talk about is just going to be kind of movies in general. Just what we like about movies, what we think is good about, the art of film, if you want to talk about that. So I guess we'll start off with a little bit of random discussion. How are you, Jimmy?
I'm doing all right. A little tired. That's to be expected, though. This pandemic has me all out of whack. Just trying to get by day to day. How about you?
Oh, yeah. If anyone's listening to this and you're living in a cave, or as you should be at this time, we are in the middle of a global crisis of the scale heretofore unforeseen. So everything's horrible. That's why we're here huddling together over the warm firelight of this pumpkin spice candle to talk about stuff that is not the current state of affairs.
Anything else?
Anything but, yeah. And I am okay as well. All right, moving on. So the film that we're going to discuss today is a pretty good one, wouldn't you say, Jim?
I'd say it's pretty wonderful. Definitely one of the greatest directors of all time. I don't know if I'd say the greatest, but he's definitely cemented his name out there, and I think this comedy really is one of the best satires of all time for what it tries to accomplish, and for something that people were really scared about at that time. Yep,
that's actually a good introduction. The film we're talking about is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, directed by Mr. Stanley Kubrick, starring Peter Sellers and George C. Scott, among others. And I have in my hands the beautiful, excellent, fantastic Criterion Collection edition of this film on Blu-ray. So I'm just going to, in a very unprepared and milquetoast way, kind of read some of the information off the back just to give a little bit of knowledge about this. Stanley Kubrick's painfully funny take on Cold War anxiety is one of the fiercest satires of human folly ever to come out of Hollywood. The matchless shapeshifter, Peter Sellers, plays three wildly different roles. Royal Air Force Captain Lionel Mandrake, timidly trying to stop a nuclear attack on the USSR ordered by an unbalanced general. The ineffectual and perpetually dumbfounded U.S. President, Merkin Muffley, who must deliver the very bad news to the Soviet premier. And the titular Strangelove himself, a wheelchair-bound presidential advisor with a Nazi past. Finding improbable hilarity in nearly every unimaginable scenario, Dr. Strangelove is a subversive masterpiece that officially announced Kubrick as an unparalleled stylist and pitch-black ironist. So that pretty much sums it up. And yeah, as you said, it's definitely a satire of things that were extremely timely in the 60s, but I think I would argue is pretty applicable right now, since we had nuclear missile scare not too long ago with North Korea. And our president,
Hawaii, that actually thought they were under nuclear attack for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
We've never really solved those problems. We just kind of pushed them under the rug and kept on pretending nothing's going on and went around our business. But there's still just as many nuclear weapons in the world today as there's ever been.
If not more. Definitely more. And that's no good.
No.
That's bad.
With upgraded technologies and more chances that things go wrong and our society increasingly dependent on computers and basically digital systems, that's not a good time.
That is actually something I want to talk about with this film, is the idea that one person can kind of slip out of the machine. One cog in the machine can go wrong, and then everything is just sayonara, right? Like, I guess we'll do a little bit of a plot introduction. I haven't decided if I want to do spoilers so much with these, but I mean, this is an old movie that anyone who would possibly listen to this has probably seen. So I'll just go over it a little bit. But if we ever watch something that's newer, even like maybe 10 years,
we're definitely gonna want to like something that just came out a year ago. You want to just kind of like let people know like the movie's cool and yada yada, or like maybe even just like do like a 5-minute section with spoilers and like tag.
Yeah, just add a little bit of a spoiler discussion at the end. But this one we don't even really have to talk. It's pretty simple. Yeah. You know, one general says launch your nukes. Nukes get launched. Everyone dies. Doomsday device goes off. But yeah, it's interesting that we have all these kind of technologies now that presumably are there to be more safeguard oriented, but who knows, right?
Right, yeah.
Just because things are more complicated doesn't mean that they're safer or better.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what the movie is all about. I mean, just by what the point tries to make is that just by the virtue of having these technologies, unforeseen consequences can happen. The president, Merkin Muffy, seems to be completely ineffectual and confused of what's going on at all times, and doesn't really think that this is a problem up until he realizes what's about to happen. And once it does, he goes all in trying to stop it. He contacts the Russian premier, he tries to be as cooperative as possible, he lets them know, even against the advice of his military generals. But in the end, the fact that the Soviets were following the same technology that they were and decided to do a total automatic defense system response, which would have absolutely destroyed the United States if even one bomb went off in their territory, and actually does happen, suggests that these things can get wildly out of control, just even with the best intentions. So I think that's really just kind of like what it encapsulates. Like, we have the idea that, oh, this is mutually assured destruction, everything's fine, but it's all predicated on the idea that not only that people aren't fallible, but systems aren't fallible either. And we're not just having low consequences on this, like our entire society, hundreds of millions of people live under this threat every single day.
That they have absolutely nothing to do with, no recourse to. But like you said, the characters do make some sort of attempt to try and undo the damage. But to me, where a lot of the humor comes from is how ineffectual literally every single character in it is. And especially the president, who he speaks very presidentially, like he's very direct and kind of not confrontational, but like stern. And yet he never has any sort of like, he's not saying anything, right? He just keeps yelling at George C. Scott, being like, I've had enough of you, General. But I mean, everything Turgidson says, by the way, General Buck Turgidson, what a name.
Yeah.
For the most American man in film history. Chewing gum constantly, lying to his mistress.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, I mean, everything he says is like very practical, if unagreeable.
Yeah, I mean, even that's the thing. Like, he's the best military man. He's not completely unhinged like General Ripper is, but even he can be taken to a radical conclusion that's passed beyond what we would believe to be rational. I mean, that's kind of like what happens at the end with the mineshaft gap. The world is over. There's been a nuclear attack. Everybody's dead. They're trying to just create whatever small, like, vestiges of humanity that they can save at that point. And when they're worried about rebuilding, they're not just worried about what the society is going to look like 20 years from now. They're still worried about trying to fight the Russians.
Yeah, they're still worried about the same things that they are now. We wouldn't want a mine shaft gap. Just trying to recreate society with a 10 to 1 female to male ratio.
Yeah.
What were you saying about that ratio? That sounded pretty good, right? Oh, God.
It's fun to think also how there's only men in the room while that happens.
Yeah, there's only men in the movie except for Miss Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
Who's in it for like 2 minutes.
Right before Dr. Strangelove finally can walk again.
Oh, God, Dr. Strangelove. Whenever he's on screen, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
He's the Freudian slips of Mein Fuhrer and the ghost, his phantom hand.
Just like what
The Nazi hand?
Yeah. Just like what still exists in our military complex at this point. Like, oh, all these technologies are safe and independent from what we got them from and where we want them to eventually go. But given enough pressure, all of a sudden this thing that we thought was just like a vestige of liberal democracy defending itself, the facade falls apart and suddenly we're back to square one and now we're the Nazis.
Yeah. I think him being in the war room says a couple things. I think it's to me, like, what it says for most blatantly is like, well, you know, the America and the UK, the Allies, they beat the Nazis, right? But then in the period right after World War II, they became a little Nazi-ish themselves, right? And are still to this day, if not more so. Like, they're willing to include a Nazi in their strategy if it gives them an edge over the Soviets, right? Like,
absolutely. And we did
onto
that
the
en
next
masse,
enemy.
doing all their scientists and their technology, yeah.
Yeah, Paperclip, Operation Paperclip. That's some interesting shit right
I
there.
haven't really learned that much about it.
I mean, I haven't read Gravity's Rainbow yet, so it's all in there. But it's about a man who gets he can calculate the firing arc of a V8 rocket, and it gives him an erection when he does that. So obviously high class literature. But yeah, it was talking about the war room scene. I was rewatching this the other day, and I love it when the Russian ambassador is in there and him and General Turgidson start like fighting, and the president's like, "You can't fight in here. This is the war room."
Yeah, it's just perfect. It's such a timeless joke.
Yeah, there's so many good jokes like that in this.
I think one of the fun things about that, too, is you actually find out that Alexei Tedeschi, what Turgidson was trying to stop him from doing, what he was accusing him of without any basis, was basically coming into the war room and stealing all their secrets and trying to feed that back to the Russians.
Yeah,
and lo and behold, he was.
He does that, yeah. After everyone's gonna die, he still does it.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's just talk about some of the other like really funny moments. The whole thing with General Ripper and his reasoning for
The greatest character in the movie.
Yeah, a great performance, and I think the actor's name is Sterling Hayden. Yeah, Sterling Hayden plays a very good crazy person who's hiding it very well. Basically, he discovers that there's fluoride in the water and thinks that the Soviets are doing it to corrupt the essential fluids of the American populace. Mm-hmm. Which is true, of course. It's absolutely true.
I mean,
we're all Soviet agents, even today.
We're just slowly switching over to vodka.
Yeah, we're all going to be drinking vodka. You have to drink vodka or else you're going to become a secret KGB sleeper agent.
Mm-hmm. And that's like kind of like one of the things he says. He's just like, have you ever seen a Russian drink water?
They don't drink water over there.
All they drink is vodka.
and Mandrick's like, I suppose. I love him just being dragged along throughout all this and just going along with it.
I mean, what else can he do at that point?
Yeah. I just remembered when he's trying to call the president and he's like doesn't have enough change, and the other general like doesn't trust him, the guy with the Tommy gun or whatever. Oh my god, this movie is hilarious. Seriously, if you haven't seen this movie, it's the kind of comedy I like where it's not jokey, really. It's just the situation is so absurd and so like serious, but everyone's not taking it seriously enough. Or they are, but in a way that makes it just like really hilarious.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, like in no world would you consider this to be a comedy. I'm pretty sure even the original book wasn't a comedy, but just because it's so hyperbolic, the world we live in today and what its themes are, it works really well as a comedy.
Yeah, it reminds me of and I want to talk about this with you because we saw a play of this.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a lot of Catch-22 in the kind of contrast of the silliness and the absurdity with the very stark, horror really of war. And Catch-22 is not like a apocalypse type situation. It's just World War II. But like for those people on those flying missions, it is because
Yeah,
it's horrible.
horrifying. They know
Yeah.
the chance of their death is very, very high, and they see their friends dying all the time.
50-50 every time they go flying. But all the nonsense that goes on is hilarious. And it's just like, it's a lot like this. So I haven't seen that show that they made, though. They made a Hulu show, I think.
Really?
I think
Okay, cool.
George Clooney produced it. So it might be worth checking out.
They just keep on getting like higher and higher paid actors in like all these Netflix and Hulu shows now.
Well, I mean, there's no Hollywood anymore, so
Yeah. So much for that.
God bless. God bless. So let's talk about Peter Sellers, the man, the myth, the legend,
The hero.
the hero of this film, if there is one. Who is the hero of this film? Major Kong?
I would say if anybody's the hero, it would be Mandrake. Just because he at least is trying to do something. He's closest to the action and hopefully solving the problem. He does get the codes, he sends it, and it stops the attack. It's just that their system is so far gone at that point. And They couldn't reach the one plane that leads to the automatic death of everybody on the plane except for the non-chat people.
Yeah, except the tunnel people.
Mm-hmm. They're definitely not Nazis.
Yeah. So Peter Sellers plays Doctor Strange, as I said when I was reading the back of the box. He plays Doctor Strangelove, he plays Mandrake, and he plays the President. And it's almost impossible to tell just by looking at them, and especially by the way they act, because it's very different. Especially the President. To me, the President was really different looking.
Yeah.
From just the way Peter Sellers looks, and the performance is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And it's like the least costume too.
Yeah, he's just a bald, paunchy man,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they're each funny in their own way. The ineffectual, like Air Force commander, the British guy, who is kind of like the opposite of the James Bond stereotype, right? He's just this ineffectual kind of, not quite bumbling, but
Yeah, he just in no world that
Yeah.
he expected he could even come to this. He just thought he was going to work that morning.
He's the audience surrogate, if anyone is. Just like, oh, what kind of crazy situation are we in? I guess I'll just try and not get shot, not blow up the entire planet. And then there's, of course, Dr. Strangelove, who's not in it for very long, but is pretty great whenever he is on camera. He's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I was looking a little into that too. I was surprised to learn that a lot of that was ad-libbed. Like, a lot of his scenes he just kind of did impromptu, like improvised, and then they threw it in later. Like an actually acted out scene. Pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, Kubrick, infamous for doing, take after take after take.
Oh, yeah.
But, I don't know, I think most people who are, even if they're not fans of Kubrick and who have seen some of his stuff, they've probably seen his, thrillers and stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
What do you think his most popular? I'd say The Shining.
Yeah, I'd say The Shining
It's probably the
probably
most
too.
well known. I mean, I know
People love horror
2001. 2001 is the big influential one. And he's got all these other movies that aren't as big of a deal, like Barry Lyndon, Eyes Wide Shut.
Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah, Full Metal
Yeah,
Jacket's
that's a
pretty
pretty big one too,
popular.
yeah.
Yeah. But what would you think his? I guess we'll save that for the general discussion. But I don't know,
2001 Space Odyssey.
just from the few. That's your favorite? Do you think his best movie?
It's my favorite, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. We'll talk about it later. But just from the few behind the scenes things I have watched on this Blu-ray, they have a lot of special edition behind the scenes stuff. It seemed to be a bit looser. I mean, this is one of his earlier films, so he probably wasn't as crazy and demanding yet.
Yeah.
But it is pretty. You can just tell. It's not very flashy in terms of direction, like some of the other stuff is, especially The Shining in 2001.
Yeah.
It's more traditional, I guess, in directing style. I'm trying. There's no the airplane. All the special effect shots are pretty basic.
Yeah.
There's the matte painting of the airport or the Air Force base at the beginning, and then all the matting stuff with the planes. But I don't know. I like the design of the war room. I think that's might be the most interesting thing about the whole thing in terms of like production, design, and everything. I like when George C. Scott's like, the triangles are the targets and the little dotted lines are the planes. Just almost like the kids playing at war, which is pretty appropriate, I think.
Mm-hmm. Like they just have their military men arranged in their bedroom.
Yeah, they're just like, it's like a light bright. It's like a giant light bright that they have. And they each have their own phone. And then the ambassador's like, I don't have a phone. I can't call him. Careful, he might be drunk. Oh, that phone call with the Russian premier is incredible.
Yeah.
That's the president at his best right there.
Yeah, I definitely say
Are you
so.
fine? I'm fine. You're coming through fine. It's fine that we are both fine. It's so good. So yeah, this is a movie that should serve as a wake-up call to anyone to stop drinking tap water because you're being poisoned, and it's turning the frogs gay.
It is. All the frogs gay.
As we all know. Unfortunately, Jimmy, I have to admit, I just actually drank a whole glass of tap water.
What did you do?
So I have a pistol under the table aimed at you.
All right.
I know both my hands are above the table, but trust me, I have a gun aimed at you under the table, and I'm going to eliminate you before this is over.
I definitely can't trust you, but thankfully I won't have to live in a world with people with fluoridated water in their systems.
Look, just because I don't have a pure essence doesn't mean we can't all get along, all right? Are you telling me your essence is pure?
Whoa, I mean, come on.
Or what is it, essential bodily fluids? Like when Turgeson's reading his letter or like the response, may we all reign in health and purity of our bodily fluids. We're not quite sure what he meant by that last line.
It's like, I think it's like honestly like some whole like subconscious like virility trip. Like this guy is like a soldier. He's a professional soldier. That's what he does. He exists to fight the Russians. All of a sudden, honestly, he's getting older.
And the Cold War is not as glamorous as like a real war.
Yeah, and it's running on and like kind of like what was like some like kind of like fearful, exciting drag is turning into a long, protracted anxiety where anything could go wrong at any minute, and we might lose the advantage if we look the other way.
Yeah, and they're on the front lines.
Yeah.
They're running the planes 24/7 there.
Oh yeah, and like this man's like the military man. He's the tough guy. He's the embodiment of strength. And what happens to people who are strong? They get old and they get like weaker. And this
I
guy
first discovered it during the act of love.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, I see what's going on here.
Like it's not like though the natural course of history is happening to him. It's the Russians have come to get me through the water. So the only way we can stop them is before they get us.
Yeah, we're gonna go all the way on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about the doomsday device, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh well.
It's just like if humans are fallible and our machines are fallible, then our impression that as long as we have MAD and everybody is looking out for themselves, everything will be okay. Maybe that's not as stable as we think it is, and I think that's just the movie encapsulated.
Well, we've come this far, Jim. We've come far enough to have every human being die through climate change and fiery tornadoes of death rather than nuclear warfare.
Yeah, not really good. We got a whole bunch of ways to die now. It's great.
That's true. We could all die from this virus or a follow-up virus.
Yeah, who knows? There could be 3 new viruses tomorrow. I mean, it's not likely, but hey.
I always predicted, to me, the most realistic doomsday scenario was like mass virus outbreak.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a super fatal virus we're in, but it's killing lots of people. And it hasn't slowed down yet, at least in this dumpster fire we call a country.
Yeah, and to be totally frank, I mean, like, the coronavirus is pretty bad. It's the worst virus we've had in probably 100 years, but, like, the death rate, I mean, we're estimating probably it's somewhere around, like, 0.5%, 1%, maybe a little higher than that, in, like, the broad scheme of cases. But that's, I mean, there have been worse diseases in history. There have been a lot worse ones, and, like, our world is so interconnected now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really, like, is this thing as stable as we think it is? Maybe it's more fragile than that. Who knows?
I mean, this is, like, the inevitable outcome of globalization, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Like, one country gets sick, everyone is getting sick.
Yeah, in a few months, like, oh, that's in China. That can't get here. Well, guess what? It already is.
Yeah. Guess what? I'm in a class with 20 Chinese students, and now I'm sick. Now I have reduced lung capacity. Oh well. All right. So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about the film before we move on?
Not really that I can think of off the top of my head. I just think it's really great. I think they did a really great job on it. I think Kubrick was just coming off Path to Glory, and it was fun to see him take something that was such like a serious film and kind of move in more of a lighthearted direction, even about something that to most people was probably really scary at the time.
Yeah, I mean they're similar thematically, like the kind of folly of war and letting military people run things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is also great. We'll have to talk about that at some point. But you know why I picked this one for this episode? My initial plan was to do Seven Samurai as the first episode, that being the best movie of all time. But it's like 3 hours long, and I didn't want to make you rewatch a 3-hour film like on the spur of the moment.
The 90 minutes I put into this was not that bad, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's a nice quick one compared to a lot of the stuff I watch, which tend to be a bit longer. So we'll get to Seven Samurai. We're gonna watch a lot of Kurosawa.
Awesome.
Because Kurosawa is the man.
So more than good for me.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of them now. So, all right, so we're gonna take a short break and then come back to talk about movies in general. Stay tuned. And we're back. Part 2. General banter. So my original plan was to talk about just movies in general this episode. In the future, probably going to have more specific topics. Probably pretty esoteric ones. Because I like to talk about weird, crazy stuff. Because I'm a weirdo. But that's neither here nor there. My original plan for this show was to have the guest pick the movie every time, and then I pick the weird topic to kind of balance it out, just because I don't want to be picking all these movies every time. But as long as it's me and you doing it, because you'll probably be the guest most of the time.
Yeah.
Because we're movie friends. We watch movies all the time together.
Naturally.
We'll probably alternate, I guess, or mutually agree on one, probably. And then we can do the same with the topic. But someday we're going to talk about the Cambrian explosion. That's my dream, to do a very lengthy discussion on the Cambrian explosion.
That's how everything's over.
The coolest time period in history, in my opinion. Because 6-foot giant shrimp. Imagine that gumbo.
If only.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about movies. I like movies. Do you like movies?
Yeah,
Tim?
movies are cool.
Do you like film with a capital F?
Film. I don't know if I like film.
Do you ever hold a piece of film in your hand and rub it together and just get all that beautiful oil all over yourself?
You know, sometimes when I'm feeling real academic. But only sometimes.
Sometimes I push my glasses down to the bridge of my nose and unbutton my cardigan and I just talk about film, the art of film. Anyone who's listening to this has probably heard me use the word film and movie interchangeably. That's because I don't want to be pretentious, but I went to school for this, so I have to be. They trained me to be pretentious. They made me pretentious.
They broke me down and made me them.
Just when I thought I was out, they made me pretentious. That's a film reference right there. There's gonna be a lot of those. So yeah, I'm gonna say the word film. I'm gonna say the word movie. Just deal with it. It's okay.
You need to get a little siren. Just
every time I say film, nerd alert. I can use that sound clip.
Nerd alert!
God. I don't know. I think the distinction is valid, but like not important, really. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the difference between taking pictures and photography, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like there's movies, but then there's, film.
Well, yeah.
But I think there are people who probably take it a little bit too seriously, and I try not to do that because I think the distinction between art and entertainment is like a pretty wide line, really.
Yeah.
I think things can be both, I've definitely seen films
Yeah.
that are one and not the other. I've definitely seen entertaining things that I did not think was art in
Right.
any way, shape, or form, even though it uses like the formal aspects of film as art. But I was like, there's no I mean, but they don't have to be that.
Would Sharknado fall in that category?
Yes, absolutely. And I've definitely seen things that were very artistic and beautiful and, impressive, but that weren't necessarily entertaining
Right.
or fun.
Mm-hmm.
What's an example? Nothing comes to mind at the
Don't you
moment.
say 2001: Space Odyssey, because I'll agree with you. I'll be mad.
2001: Space Odyssey. Not that entertaining. I actually think I like it every time I watch it more.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time I saw 2001, it was mostly just impressive.
Yeah.
But I think it's just fun to watch just because of how like cool everything in it is, even if it is really slow.
Yeah.
And here's a good example: Stalker, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky.
Okay.
That's one we're gonna have to watch. Maybe not for this, but just that's probably one I want to talk about with Libby because she loves that. But it's really long. It's really, really slow, but it's like gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And the discussions in it are philosophical and really kind of engaging. But I would not call it fun or entertaining, right?
Yeah.
It's like looking at a beautiful painting for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But paintings can be fun too.
Yeah, babies.
Nerd alert!
I just
Let's all look at Campbell soup.
let's look at some cans of Campbell's soup in my pantry.
Art is
Warhol.
such a fluid and weird world that I don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
I that's why I'm an art student, because I hate myself and I love being subjective about everything. But yeah, it's fun to talk about because it is so subjective, and yet there are these kind of like criteria that do make things good or bad, right? And that's,
Yeah.
to me, trying to reach that objectivity is like part of the fun of
Mm-hmm.
criticism and engagement with stuff. You'll never be able to be fully objective, but you can try to kind of line up your view of a thing with what is generally accepted, and then in the process, like, yourself become more understanding and more empathetic with other people's viewpoints, which is, to me, the most valuable thing art can do,
Yeah.
is to create that empathy and that widening of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know a lot of people who have very narrow perspectives on life, and they're pretty awful.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's just kind of the world we're heading towards. Everybody's more in their bubble. Less people are just interacting with different people all the time. Everybody's at home. Everybody's online. People aren't really getting different perspectives, and they think everybody else is crazy and wrong.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most useful ways to kind of look at the world is to see people who you might have, angry reactions towards, and just realize that, like, well, maybe they just, have a very limited worldview. Maybe they just don't, look outside of their own kind of shaded way of looking at things, and that's why they think that way. It's not necessarily because they're like evil, horrible people. It's just because they haven't given themselves a chance to like think in a different way than they always have.
Yeah, I mean, we're all imperfect. We all only accomplish so much. We only have our experiences, and I think that's, if we're going to endorse film here, or even fiction more broadly, I think that's like one of the greatest things it can really give us, is just kind of force you to be in the head of somebody else and like really see their experience and be like, hey, like, maybe my take on the situation is wrong because I'm not really incorporating these people's experience into my view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of my first classes when I went back to school was a American novel class, and the sort of broad stroke lessons we were taking from that were a perspectival worldview, right?
Yeah.
So what literature and another, in film and art in general can do is to give you a peek into someone else's head. You're not them, obviously, but you can see their kind of way of transcribing their worldview onto the page or onto picture or music even, right? Like it's the closest you can get to reading someone's mind or looking through their eyes. And that's really valuable, especially when you're like us, you're suburban, white guys.
Yeah.
If you read something like Things Fall Apart, you get that perspective from someone on a completely different part of the world. And it's fiction, obviously it's not quote unquote real, but there's always going to be reality in something like that. And that to take that and then say, all right, well, I understand a little bit more about humanity is like immensely valuable, and you get entertained to boot. So what do you got to lose, right?
Yeah, you can
your time. What are you doing? You're sitting on your couch playing Call of Duty, playing Minecraft. What a waste of time. My roommate is playing Minecraft right now. I hope he heard that. Let's not name names here, he says. Video games are pretty okay, though.
Yeah,
they're okay.
I don't think there's a bigger spectrum in art.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about video games at some point. It's the elephant in the room. Let's take a second to talk about the kind of things we might talk about in the future. This is a pilot episode, after all. Let's kind of throw some stones into the pond, see what ripples might come out. We're going to talk about video games. We're going to talk about anime with our friend Billy.
Oh boy,
that's going to be a doozy. We're going to have to watch an anime movie to kind of kickstart it, though. Hopefully something good.
Hey, I've got only a few bad things. I have a lot of bad things to say about anime, but it's also produced a lot of really, really good culture. So I mean, I'll defend it. I'll die. I don't know. I'll die on that hill. I'll be mildly bruised on that hill.
I think there is good anime, and I think I've seen all of it, all 5 of them. I don't want to. That's a whole another thing. We might even have to do a month of anime. I was thinking of doing a month of Kurosawa, where we do a Kurosawa episode a week, for 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. We should do a month of anime where we watch Ghost in the Shell, Perfect Blue, and then Your Name or whatever, those newer ones that Billy keeps telling me about. Maybe some Miyazaki.
Oh, we're gonna be harsh.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know. I'd say there's 20 or 30 good animes. I think I tend to give it a lot of flack, but I think it actually can really accomplish a lot sometimes.
I think it works better in the movie format too.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't you don't get all the things I don't like about it, like numerous dead end storylines and horrible characters and.
Yeah, I think it's.
But I digress.
I think it's really just a victim of its success. It just kind
of. Oh,
I
agree completely.
When it first came out, it had to prove itself, so everything had to be very unique and special, and every little second and frame had to be lovingly crafted and thought about how it would impact a viewer who didn't want to like anime. Mm-hmm. Now it's just kind of tropes and tropes and tropes and just kind of keeping the repeat customers happy.
Yeah. Well, to tie it back into film. It's kind of like that, where, although in reverse, where film started off as this kind of spectacle.
Yeah.
If you look into film history, it started off as they call it the cinema of attraction, where it's a carnival attraction. It's look at this thing we can do.
Yeah.
So they would film just stuff, people eating a sandwich or a train coming at the camera, right? And then that's why they had Nickelodeons, because you would just go and be oh, look at this cool 10 minutes of film or whatever. And it was only in the 20s that they started making, maybe even later with Chaplin and I can't remember the woman's name right now. I'll edit it in in a really monotone voiceover. The woman who I'm thinking of, who made really not Mary Pickford, whatever, who are making story films, and Méliès in France, and then as they became more narrative and story driven and expensive and hard to make, it kind of winnowed everything down into being we have to make these really good in order for them to have any value. And then it blew up again in the golden age of Hollywood, and then you get the studio system collapsing, and then in the 60s and 70s things got crazy, and we got good movies again. There's always been good movies, but for me, the 70s is when shit was like the late 60s, early 70s, even late 70s is when shit was like awesome. Like, yeah, just like music. Shit was on fire. They were firing on all cylinders. That's when Apocalypse Now came out, and that's like the best movie. I don't know. So yeah,
I definitely hear that argument out.
Yeah, let's talk about movies we think are our favorites or the best.
Oh, God.
The best being completely like for whatever reason.
I'm just gonna sit in front of this microphone for 10 minutes now.
Just gonna sit in silence. A moment of silence for our fallen Jimmys.
Yeah, I'm gonna blow a blood vessel in my brain just trying to think of what I'm gonna stand by as the best movie of all time.
I mean, when I was in a sound production class and an editing class with the same professor, who was really cool. You would have liked him, Jim. He showed us clips of a bunch of movies, but he showed us a lot of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about it. He said it was like the best movie ever made.
Yeah.
And whether or not you like enjoy it, the way it was made and the amount of effort that went into it and the kind of finished product is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's awe-inspiring.
And it's
it really
awesome.
is. Yeah.
To me, that's like it's very reminiscent of the other movie I think is the best movie ever, which is Seven Samurai. But whereas Seven Samurai is like massive in scope,
right,
for the time especially, but what Seven Samurai does really well is storytelling, and it uses like all the means of storytelling that film has available, perfectly, pitch perfectly. And then Apocalypse Now does that in the excessive 70s style of we're gonna go into the shit. We're gonna be in the shit. We're gonna live Vietnam right after it happened.
Right. Yeah.
And we're gonna,
so soon.
Yeah, and we're gonna show you what it was like, and it's gonna be a horrific, beautiful nightmare. And
to just use it as a Heart of Darkness kind of like
amazing adaptation.
Yeah, whereas like Seven Samurai is so interpersonal. This is like an interior drama of a human being, like what they can find in themselves when they go into like this dark place. It's absolutely just nuts.
It's really interesting way to do Heart of Darkness too, because Heart of Darkness is very of its time, and I don't think you could do it now as like a straight adaptation of doing it in the Congo. I like Heart of Darkness a lot.
Yeah.
You can
like
call it.
Now better.
Oh yeah, Apocalypse Now is just a much better version of that story.
Yeah.
Because it preserves all the important things while changing the settings and like elevates it all.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Heart of Darkness. This is just a Heart of Darkness podcast now. Heart of Darkness is really about like imperialism. It's like not about imperialism, but it's set in I believe it's the Dutch who owned the. Oh yeah, you're right. It was the Belgians who owned quote unquote the Congo, and were exploiting the shit out of it, and like the atrocities that come of that, not because of where they are, but because that's what they brought and unleashed. Them being in the Congo so far away from their homeland is what unleashed like that darkness, and they do that in Apocalypse Now even more effectively.
Yeah.
Because it's literal war. It's not just occupation and exploitation. It's straight up, we have no reason to be here other than to kill all of you for political reasons.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's not like he's just going out to fight the enemy. He's going after one of their guys, like, who kind of, like, is very similar to him, but just kind of progresses to, like, resent the fact of what they're doing there, but also kind of view it as, like, a way where, like, growing into something that's, like, kind of, like, malevolent and just the product of, like, all this, like, atrocity and violence. To where he just is like seizing power and basically trying to become some sort of crazy violent king. So can you stop him, or is he like that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that the true horror of that is that we all have that inside of us.
Yeah, I mean,
like he identifies with that, and it's not a good thing to realize that.
Yeah,
that's why he has to slice and dice.
Yeah, duality people. We're fragile. We have to carefully try to like all make sure that we're just taking care of ourselves and each other and try to be as positive as we can, because if there's not that maintenance, or even if it's from the exterior world and we don't apply enough of ourselves to maintaining those things, then it's not a basis for society or cooperation. It just will lead to more negative consequences.
Leads to dog eat dog. One dog, one bone, one napalm. Oh yeah,
telling you about in the morning.
that's gonna. We have to watch that movie as well.
Yeah.
That's gonna be like a special edition.
yeah.
That's gonna be like a 12-hour podcast.
All day, all night.
It's the Apocalypse Now edition. Which is just the Doors playing in the background.
This is the end.
Great use of music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good use of music in Doctor Strangelove too.
Yeah.
We'll meet again. I used that in a thing I made, but I used the different version. So we'll wrap it up in a couple minutes. I just wanted to say a couple other movies I wanted to talk about in the future. I just watched, speaking of Coppola, I just watched Rumblefish, which is a Coppola film.
Okay.
He made it in 1980 or 81, I think.
Okay.
And I liked it a lot. So we're going to have to do that. Maybe even like next.
Maybe.
You'll like it because Stuart Copeland did the soundtrack.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, super cool.
And it's a cool soundtrack.
He is one of the most underrated drummers of all time, in my opinion. But,
And he's and he's just drumming in that soundtrack. It's really cool. What else? We've been wanting to watch a lot of movies, but I feel like for this we're gonna have to rewatch a lot of movies.
Oh yeah.
I was just thinking like there are certain movies that suit this better,
Right.
but like because I was thinking like we really like Dr. Zhivago, and I would watch it again, but I don't know if it would suit this format really well because like what do you talk about other than?
It's like, I don't know, Dr. Zhivago is such a movie that just kind of, I feel like the force of it comes from the way it weighs on you, just as you watch these events happen to a person. It's a very kind of like, it's a saga of this man's life under like, not necessarily, well yeah, the way to communism, really like the revolution that happens there, and him kind of like being a man versus society struggle. Just trying to find his way through that and survive and like take care of the people around him and maintain a family.
But the quality of that really comes from the story, not so much the filmmaking. You know what I mean? Same with like Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Like the scope is beautiful. It's like beautiful to look at, but it's just it's a nice long story, and that seems to be the kind of thing with David Lean movies. So, personally, I would rather dissect like a film that's like interesting in some way or like really iconic or just like really weird.
Yeah, that's what I think of the best choices too.
Something in particular that like sticks out about it. So I'd like to have Eric on at some point. Maybe you and Eric, because we both watched Jeremiah Johnson. I'd like to do Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
We should do Grand Budapest at some point because that's like my other favorite movie.
It's hilarious, yeah.
And it's amazing, yeah. Any Wes Anderson, really. But I hope to do this somewhat regularly. Because it's just us talking, sitting around talking. It's not hard to do.
Yeah,
it's fun.
We're gonna do this anyway, so we might as well just kind of
share
it.
Yeah, So I guess we'll call it there. And Jim, it's been a pleasure as always.
Absolutely, you as well.
I can't wait to do this again. Hopefully a little bit more professionally. It's going to be a learning process, right? This is just a rough cut. It's going to be a little rough because we're just figuring things out, but we'll get better. And also, I hope to show off my editing skills a little bit. Get a little background music going, a little light music, a little fire, a little fireplace that we'll be warming our bones by. And for everyone who listened to this, thank you for listening. I think what most podcasts do is they give a little bit of like plugging information. Yeah. So, Jim, where can people find you online if they want to?
Don't find me.
Okay, Jimmy doesn't want to be found.
I don't know. I have a Facebook. I have email.
What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle?
You don't even know, do you?
I don't even know anymore. I just post my dumb thoughts all the time.
That's how everyone does. But we're trying to network here, Jim. We're trying to get people to spread the word. And by people, I mean my dad, who's probably the only person who's going to listen to this. So, Dad, if you're listening to this, go to twitter.com/ratherbeefrolfing and, I don't know, smash that like button. Follow and subscribe. Go to youtube.com/GoodSlashBad. the word / being spelled out. That's where this is going to be posted. I'm also going to probably try and get it on SoundCloud. I have a SoundCloud. I've never made one of these before, obviously, so I'm going to see what I have to do to get it on Spotify, as many platforms as possible. Probably not Apple right away, just because Apple's sucks. Yeah. I didn't say that, for the record. And I don't know, maybe it'll catch on. But, even if it's just a couple people that we know who listen to it, throw it on in the car or whatever, hear my sultry voice, that would make me happy. And I need that so bad. Oh, God. The cicadas are singing the song of death, the song of summer. I hate summer so much.
Oh, my God.
It's so damn hot here. There's a death virus everywhere. People aren't wearing their masks. I just want it to end. I just want it all to end. All right, Jimmy, do you have any parting words?
I can't top that.
All right, well, thanks for listening again, everyone. Go check out the YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.